Richard, thank you for taking the time in the middle of a busy, busy junket. Is the day going well so far?
It is, Darren. Thank you for taking time. Thanks for your excitement about the show.
Yeah, well, also excitement to talk with you, knowing your background and all that. Sorry to mention like an off-brand competitor for a second, but watching a show like The Kaminsky Method, it always enforced the stereotype that the acting teachers can't find work as acting. And you've been working steadily for like 20-ish years now, would you say?
I have been. Isn't it same? Barry does the same thing too. You know, Henry Winkler on Barry. It's always like the acting teacher never gets an acting job. And it's so good to be the person who gets to say, they always say if they can't teach, and I get to go if you can teach. So I definitely get a lot of street cred from my students.
For sure. This is a great show, Big Shot. For me, I didn't know it was in the works. You know, sometimes when I read the trades, something's coming 6 months, 9 months down the line. When did this show actually get shot and finished?
Well, that's a good question. There was a little global pandemic that happened. And so that was a brief intermission. We started in 2019. The very end of 2019 is when we actually started. And then Disney loved the show. Obviously, it's David E. Kelley, and ABC has a relationship with David E. Kelley.
Yeah.
And so they wanted 10 episodes. So then as soon as 2020 started, we were back on set. We were shooting the new episodes, and then everything shut down. And then we took a long break because Disney was really particular about our precautions, and they were extra cautious, and they were very protective with all of us. And I felt so safe with what they did. I mean, it was incredible. And then once they figured all that out, they invited us back, and we all came back because we all were convinced that we were safe, and we were. They did a great job.
Coming into this role as George Pappas, how much sports knowledge did you have then versus now?
Oh, that's such a good question, because I am 5'8" and from Texas, in this rural Texas town. So basketball, I never played basketball in my life. Now, I watched the Houston Rockets when I was a kid because Hakeem Olajuwon was on there, and that was like that time. But I've never been a big basketball fan. I'm a huge Mets fan, and so I love baseball, and I play golf and stuff like this. But it's basically what my body can do. My body can't play other sports. I never played football, even though I grew up in Texas, because I'm about the size of a football. They would have killed me.
I'm even shorter than you, and I probably from sports in the last 15 years, aside from the Mets, which I go to a lot of Mets games. Aside from that, my sports knowledge is probably on par with yours. There's a famous jazz keyboard player, Robert Glasper.
And yes, I know him. Oh my God, he's amazing.
Well, one time I was at this music festival, they flew me and a bunch of other writers out, and they went, anybody you want to interview? And I said, Robert Glasper. And they went, he doesn't do interviews. And he's wearing a Houston Rockets jersey, an Olajuwon jersey, or it was a James Harden. I basically went, could I interview you just about the Rockets? And he says, Hakeem Olajuwon once tried to pick up my mom in a bar. And he was willing to do the interview. So I find sometimes when you want to talk to artists, you have to find that one thing that they care about because they don't like to talk about the craft. You seem comfortable to talk about the craft, though.
Well, I do because I talk about it in my classrooms, and I think that's also one of the things that I think the students like is because I don't treat it like a sort of mysterious religion. Instead, I say there are mysterious parts to why people become actors. That's sort of out of my pay grade. I mean, that there is a divine sort of mystery to it, but there's a lot that has to be learned. So much of what I'm teaching is the stuff that has to be learned. Yeah. I mean, in some ways, I even tell them, I go, I can't teach acting, but I can train an actor. So if you're an actor, I can help you. But if I can teach acting, well, then I could just go to Starbucks and pick 14 students and teach them all how to act. It's just, that's not the case though. So I really try to focus on what is teachable.
Yeah, well, not ironically, not even coincidentally, the show is about coaching and the teaching craft. were there any points if the answer is no, just tell me no. Were there any points that Mr. Stamos said, hey, how would you teach this?
Oh, well, let me tell you something. John Stamos is such a great guy. And he knew I was a teacher. And what's so great is that he never looked at it as if like, oh, Richard has some day job. He really saw me as, he respected what I do so much that oftentimes we'd have guest stars and he would say, be careful, Richard's a fancy acting teacher. Like, be careful, he's really good. And then a lot of our scenes together became certainly some of my favorite scenes in the whole show. And then he said the same thing to me, where he said, I really like playing with you. And he says, I feel like I learn something new every day. And I said, my God, I feel like I'm learning something new. We collaborated in a way that I think he just instantly trusted me. He's a great theater background, and enough people don't give him credit for, he's carried Broadway shows, musicals, dancing, singing. He kind of does everything.
He does, and my first exposure to him in person was going to a private Beach Boys gig or two where he just sits down at the drum kit and he plays. Yes. And then...
Yes. Do you know he did a Beach Boys concert on the beach here that was socially distanced?
Yeah.
And this is who John is. And because it was down in Southern California where I live, he said, hey, we're going to be down there. Do you and the family want to come? And so we got to park. I guess it was front row parking is how you call it. So we had front row parking at a drive-in Beach Boys concert. It was amazing.
Yeah, I think at that same show, he sat down at the drum kit, a couple songs, and they went, hey, do you want to play guitar? Oh, sure. Sings guitar for a couple songs. He's a very versatile performer that not everybody realizes how versatile the guy is. And
they don't. I think, honestly, truly, I do think he's almost too good looking for his own good. And I think that it's distracting. And I think that we're not used to having, like me, I'm a character actor. So I think people are like, oh, sure, Richard reads books and Richard plays piano and Richard is a professor, because that's kind of what I'm supposed to do. But with all that gorgeous hair and that, the shiny smile and everything, I think he's kind of underrated sometimes. I don't think he gets the credit he should.
I put him up there on that list, would say Rick Springfield, that like heartthrob kind of guy who can also sing, who can do everything. And you're shocked when they can do everything. And you go, well, what's their Achilles heel? And maybe you just don't want to know what that is.
You hate them.
Exactly. John's projects have a long history of including the Beach Boys in them. Is there any chance we might get a big shot walk-on from the Beach Boys if there's a season 2?
Oh my God, I hope so. I hope Mike Love plays my dad.
Sure. So bringing it back to you, is Big Shot the only thing that you're promoting that you're allowed to talk about, or are there other irons in the fire that are public?
Right now, this is what I'm working on, and we have, and this is what I'm talking about right now. Now, at the university, I'm right now preparing to send some of my graduate students out into the world. So at the end of this week, I'm going to be releasing a short showcase of some of their scenes, and for industry people, for agents and casting directors and managers and networks, and then also family and friends to watch. So I'm sort of releasing these 2 projects that just turned out that way. One's this Friday and then one's next Friday.
That is wonderful that you play such a long-term role without commissioning. Well, no, you don't have to disclose that.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I mean, when I think about other fields where the person's mentoring or something like that, there's usually that kind of implication that, hey, the only reason I'm doing this is because I have a future cut. Whereas you have more of a, I care about you approach to things, and I want to see you do well. And then hopefully you get thanked in that.
I feel a lot of responsibility because I was them,
Yeah.
I mean, my whole teaching philosophy is I want to be the Richard Robichaux I needed when I was 18. Like, what did I need from a teacher?
Yeah.
And so I try to be as honest as I can be and as authentic as I can be, because education is how I was able to come from a small rural town in East Texas to talking with you.
Exactly. Well, aside from work, what do you do for fun? Well, the Mets is is part of that. But
No,
do you have
no.
any surprising hobbies? Are we going to find that you have the John Stamos equivalent of the Beach Boys, where we see you doing blank on the weekends and evenings?
That's such a good question. Do you know, I will tell you that I'm in my late 40s, but I started to play piano. I've taken piano up and trying to study piano. And so it's almost meditative because it takes me so much concentration.
Yeah.
You know, my son and my daughter, it's easy for them. For me, it requires every ounce of mental strength I have to just put both hands on there. And I love it. If I could do anything, I mean, like Robert Glasper, like you're talking about, if I could play like him, I mean, oh my God, I just, that's what I wish.
Hence, you knowing who Robert Glasper is. I mean, most people have heard his work without realizing they've heard the work, but I'm impressed that you know who he is. You seem like a pop culture student of the game without trying.
And we're Mets fans. Darren, this is a long-term friendship.
Well, how did you get into the Mets as a Texas native?
Oh, I can't wait to tell you this, because as a Mets fan, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. When I went to grad school, I went to Rutgers. And so I was living in Jersey.
Yeah.
And because I was an Astros fan as a boy, I'd been a National League fan. And so, of course, I took on the Mets. And then that became the Mets that went to the Subway Series. And so I was only a Mets fan for like 2 years. And so I had Piazza and Al Leiter and all those folks.
Yeah.
And we got to watch the Subway Series in New York, which is unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Because in my apartment in New York, you could tell which window the Mets fan or the Yankees fans were at from the screaming. You know, every hit, you'd go, "Oh, Yankees fan," and then we would, you know, then Piazza would hit a home run, and you'd be like, "Oh, Mets fan down in 3C."
Yeah, I thought the answer was going to be because of Texas, the Astros, and the Rangers. It was going to be that Nolan Ryan headlock and the fact that he went to the Mets.
Right. Well, and then the famous 1986 brawl between the Astros and the Mets at Cooters, the bar in Houston. Listen, I'm ready.
Exactly. Well, the season looks promising based on the new Mets players. So fingers crossed the new ownership and all that does well. And back to you. Big shot, good reviews, looks like a quality show. Your students are doing fine. Is there anything that I missed here about your life and times?
No, I don't think so. I mean, this has been great. Thank you so much, Darren.
My pleasure. So my closing question, and it could be as self-promotional as you want. It can include as many plugs for your website as you want. Any last words for the kids, Richard?
I would say on Instagram at Richard_Robichaux. I'm very new to it. So you'll see, I've only had like 30 posts, but my students are pushing me into the 21st century. And so it's got a good mix of what I teach and then also what I do on the show. I don't think there's anything like it.
Awesome. Well, just keep up that greatness. Looking forward to everything that's coming from you, even if it is an overindulgent solo album from you on piano.
Yes.
Whatever it is, man, just keep up the greatness there.
Oh, man, thank you so much. So nice to meet you.
Paltrocast.